So I added something to our example 23. If you guys want to open that one. This is where we started with having our two-dimensional transformations that we can do with CSS. Everyone's there? Okay. I would love you to add these 3 lines here, the div with the class of skew, and inside is a paragraph with some text. So everyone there? Okay. So this should just make a box here. And now let's add a little bit of styling there. I created these 2 classes here, 2 lines for the class of skew. One is where I give it a different width and background color, and then something for the paragraph inside the skew class, just to align it a little bit. So now we just added another 5th box. So with the 2-dimensional things we can do, we had the translate where we could move something. Then we had the rotation here going with the scale where we made something bigger. And then we had transition where we could put timing on different changes we do to the element. And this is here now skew. And skew, I have here the CSS rule to make it work for our hover state. And it's just, you can just put 1 degree there, so 1 set of degrees there, or 2 sets of degrees. The one is for the X axis and the other one is for the Y axis. And let me preview that in the browser for you. Just put it here. So we had the moving, the rotating, the sizing, the timing with it. And then with skew, I flip it on the X and Y axis. So it may look like 3-dimensional, but it's just distortion with the X and Y axis. So that's stuff you can do in 2-dimension. It's not really used too much, but I want you to have that one in order to, for our next step with the 3-dimensional ones. Okay. Okay, in case it comes back. So, sorry, the camera fell off. So that was for the 2-dimensional one, and let's create a 3-dimensional one. So with that, just open a new file. And then create the new file. So let's call it 3D. And then in order to make something 3-dimensional, we have to activate the 3-dimensional space. And in order to make perspective apply to our elements, and that's why we have to put a perspective CSS element for the surrounding element. So like something that holds the perspective for you. This can be done in 2 ways. It can be done with the CSS function or with the CSS property. Okay, and let's build that one step by step. Let's, in the HTML part, let's create a div. Okay, and give that one a class of scene. And inside that div, we put another div with a class of panel. Okay. And now let's write some CSS for that. So for that, let's put it just in the head. So we put some style text there. And in between, we put our CSS. So the first one for the theme. And with that one, we give the whole element the width and the height. And let's say 200 pixels. And the height of also 200 pixels. So, and then to make it visible for us, let's give it a border of 1 pixel solid, and let's do something gray. And then let's give it a margin of 40 pixels all around. Okay. Okay. And then let's put something inside for the other one. That's a class of panel. Because if nothing inside the div collapses to 0. That's why we don't see it by now. And then we give that also a width, this time of 100%. And the height of 100%. Okay, and then background color. Oh, let's do red. And voila, we're there. Okay, and now let's add some stuff. So we can add with the perspective method, we can do that into the child element. So which is then transform perspective and 600 pixels. See perspective like how far away you are from the monitor. So if the perspective is bigger, and you have, for example, a three-dimensional rotation of a couple of degrees, it will be very subtle. And if your perspective is smaller, so you're closer at the element or the monitor, then it could be a very huge transition that you're doing with the same settings. Okay, and let's do a rotate, but a rotate only on the y-axis of 45 degrees. Okay, and you saw it's actually taking here in the center, and that's why it's not. Yeah, see at the center, and it's like half of it is flipped in the background and half of it is kind of turned to the foreground. So the second way to do it is with the CSS property. And for that, let's just create another set of these. Okay, but this time it's theme 1 and panel 1. So we're not doing the same thing. So you all got that one? Okay. So theme 1. We also have width and height again. Width of 200 pixels, a height of 200 pixels, then border 1 pixel, solid and gray. Margin of 40. And this time we put the CSS property of perspective, 600 pixels here in the parent element. Okay, and then for the panel inside, we also give it a width again of 100% and height of 100%. Background color, this time blue. And the transform, this time we only need the rotate Y of 45 degrees. Everyone good? Okay, so if you have a single element, both ways do the same thing. So there's actually no difference if you do it this way or the other way. It just comes up if you do multiple elements at the same time. So if you, the way you usually should do it is if you only have one element that you want to flip, turn, or whatever, you do it with the function. And if you do it for multiple elements, you do it with the property. So we will create now 2 examples where we see why we should do it the other way, okay? So this way or that way. So let's create the div again with the class of theme. And inside there, we want to have a div with the class of panel 2. Okay, and we want to have 9 of these. So just 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, just copy paste. Everyone there? Okay. So the outer div, we already have the CSS styles for that one. Okay, so we don't have to write that one again. And in order to make it a little easier for you guys to see, I put the styles here just before where we need them. So panel 2. And there we give them a width and the height again. This time 55 pixels. Then we just get them up a little bit. Let them float next to each other. So float left. Margin of 5 pixels. Background color. Of red. Transform. Perspective. 400 pixels. And rotate Y 45 degrees. Okay. And now we see our problem. It doesn't look like they all are turned on one perspective. They're all individual turned. Just stop me if I'm too fast.
Just
Yeah.
out of curiosity, does it matter if you put the perspective before the rotate?
No.
Okay, my
And,
computer's silly then.
or let's put it here. Oh, it does.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
not crazy. That's good.
Didn't know that. Okay. So, and now let's do the same like with the blue ones again. Just copy the whole thing here. Okay. And this time we need theme 2 and panel 3. Okay. And here I'm putting the style again on top. So C2. I have to give it a width and the height again. The theme is 200 pixels. Then a border, 1 pixel solid CCC, which is gray. So I don't know if you guys know that usually the ASCII code is with 6 digits, right? It would be CC, CC, CC. But when they're all the same, you can shortcut them with just one of them. So technically it would be CCC, okay? And whenever the first two, the second two, and the third set of twos is the same, it's always a gray color. So we're there, I would give it a margin of 40 pixels again. And the perspective of 400 pixels. So at least we have the empty one. And then we need panel number 3. We have to give the width and the height again of 55 pixels. Then the float left. Margin of 5 pixels. The background color of blue. And now the transform. Transform, rotate Y, 45 degrees. And now we see the difference. These are all flipped, the red ones individually, and the blue ones are flipped around the center, where the left ones look like they're not as far turned and the right ones are turned more, because there would be more in the back. Cool. Okay. The vanishing point usually is center. You can change that with perspective origin. Let's see if I can, perspective be here. Perspective origin. And you can set, I think, 1 or 2 properties, and with definite stuff like bottom, center, left, or pixels or percentages. Let's do 25% and 75%. And we saw now that it changed a little bit. See? The one is for the X and the other one's for the Y axis. So I don't know where you would use that because I never had somewhere where I wanted to put that in, but it's an option. Let's save that one. Okay. So let's create another new page. I have you guys type a little bit today. This one is a little bit about the 3D functions we can use, okay? So let's play a little bit more with what we just learned. So let's create 5 divs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. With the class of theme. And inside the first one, we put another div with a class of panel and a class of panel translate negative. So we have 2 classes here inside. And as text inside here, let's put translate set minus 200 pixels. Okay, let's copy all that one in the next one. And instead of negative, it's positive. And instead of a minus, it's nothing. Then for the third one, we create another div with a class of panel and panel rotate -x. Okay, and rotate x 45 degrees so that we know what's inside. And that selected one again. And that one is Y. And the last one is with Z. Everyone good? Okay. You guys are typing way too fast. So let's put some style up here. And
sorry, I have a question if you don't
yes.
mind. So down below, you typed panlay to the panel.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm just making sure if we had to type that too. Thank you.
Okay. So, okay, let's give the body a different font. Font family sans serif. Just any font that doesn't have serifs. Then theme we need the width and the height again. 200 pixels. Then a border of 1 pixel solid. And a display of inline block, so that they are next to each other. Then also a margin of 60 pixels, so top right, 60 pixels bottom, and 0 on the left side. And then a perspective of 600 pixels. All good? Okay, then let's do the class of panel. So this is both for all our fields, a width of 100% and the height of 100%. Then a background color of, let's use HSLA, so background color HSLA. And we're using 0, 100%, 50%, and 0.7. Then a line height of 200 pixels. That makes our text center. A color for the text of white. A font size of 18 pixels. And the text align center. So they are now all in the center. Okay, so and now let's play with them a little bit. So the panel translate negative class. So this one just affects the first one. Let's put a transform, translate, but this time only translate set of minus 200 pixels. So 200. Okay. And that puts it in the perspective 200 pixels in the background. Okay. Then let's put the panel positive, translate positive. And there we do the same thing, just in for the foreground. See, that one got bigger. And then for the rotation, so the first one is X. to rotate on the x-axis, transform, rotate x 45 degrees. Let's do the Y one. And then also the last one. So, and there you see the different ways you can flip stuff around. So now you're asking yourself, probably, where would I use that ever, right? I have an example here. It's actually from my website. That one here. Yeah, let's use that one. Like here, for example, this is all on a cube. And whenever you press down here in the pictures, the cube turns into the other position. Like, see. So whenever you need to do something that has 6 sides, you could actually do that. But you need a little bit of JavaScript for that one to make it nice working. So I got this from an article like this that explains the same thing again. And here where you make the 6 sides, and then you just put them on the same space, so they are all on top of each other here. And then you just put them, the right one here on that side, the left one on that side, top, bottom, front, and back, and then you make the other ones. So you make basically a cube out of that, and to make the other ones not seen, and then you add up with a cube like this, and then you can turn that one around. Okay. So just for the buttons to make it work, you need a little bit of JavaScript. And you also can do that, as you see here, with a box instead of a cube. Okay. Or if you really want to play with mathematics, you can do like a carousel. But here you have to calculate the degrees you want to add up in. It's a little bit more complicated, but then you have something like this. Okay. Which I also have here somewhere. I think here in that one. Yeah. So where I can go with the carousel around. Then if you hover, it gets bigger. Okay. Questions to that one? Okay. me save that one. Okay, then let's make a card flip with some extra stuff that I can explain to you while we're going through it. And then we do some float, flex, and grid, and then I probably let you go to your assignment. Or if you want to do more, I have more examples we can do today. Okay, so new file again. Let's call it card flip. Something you see very often these days. Did I even? Okay, no. Okay, so let's create the HTML. It's pretty basic. We just need a div with a class of card. Oh. Okay. Inside, we need another div with the card control. Card-control. And then we have our two card sides we have to put inside. So another div with the class of card front. Inside there, let's put the heading 3. Let's put some text there, the fair. And a paragraph. Time for some fun. So for the heading 3, we have to put a class there with the class of card title. And for the paragraph, a class of card subtitle. So that one. Now you know why you put comments there. Okay, so after the card front, we do the card back. And inside there, we have a paragraph with the class of card body. And some text. This would be some longer text. Okay, so just that we have some text there. And then our closing stuff. So not too complicated, right? So you have a front side of the card, a back side of the card, you put some content in there, and you have a control for that, and another thing around it for the whole card. Now to the fun part, the styling. So let's import a nice font first, so we're not forgetting how to do that one. So add import URL HTTPS fonts Google APIs CSS question mark family Oswald, and we're importing 2 sets 400 700. I just happen to know the URL. So usually you would copy paste it in. So now to something different that I haven't shown you. You can create variables in CSS that you then apply later. Usually you apply the variables to the root, so you can apply them then everywhere, but you can apply them within every other element as well that you select. So this is done with colon root. Okay. Dreamweaver doesn't like that one too much, but it works. And in order to create a variable, or you name a variable, you have dash dash, then the name, level 1. Okay. And then whatever setting you want to store in there. So for the first one, let's do translate set 3 rems. Okay. Then let's create a couple other ones. Level 2. The other one is 6 rem. And number 3. Nine. So the nice thing about variables is you only have one place where you have to change them later. So you can have them in multiple places over your, let's say, 2000 line long CSS file, and you just have all the variables declared at the top of the document, and then you just, when the boss says, oh, but I want to have that font bigger or a different color, you just change it in one place and all the other places get updated, okay? So let's do 3 other ones. So for font weight, normal, we do 400. Font weight bold, we do the 700. And then one for color. Oops, color. V7 C9 E5. Okay. So now let's do a cleanup of the browser pre-sizing fixes we have in here. And that can be with a star. So a star is another thing I can select stuff with. And as you might think, it says select everything. And then we do also select everything with the before. And also everything with after. So with before and after, you can place things or elements before an element or after an element in the DOM tree, which is something we'll talk about later when we do the JavaScript stuff, okay? So we do box sizing of border box and the margin of 0. So everyone following so far? The little advanced stuff today. So select the body stuff. And let's give the body a minimum height. So a height, just put a height there with 100 viewport height. So whatever the browser window is high, that's the height of the body. So it's always full screen. Then display grid, which we do in a minute. Then we put the items in the center. Place items. Okay. Then let's do the font family. Oops. Single quote. Oswald. And if Oswald is not able to be downloaded, sans serif. Then let's go for the card. This one we give a height of 400 pixel, width of 400 pixel. And then let's do some styling for the card content. Oops. Did I say control or content? Okay. Card content. So if you have control here, you can write card control up here. Just bad reading of my side. So text align of center. Position of relative. Padding of 15 EM and 5 EM. So top and bottom is 15 and left and right is 5. Transition of transform 3 seconds. And transform style preserve 3-dimensional. Just for you guys to see what we did some here. So the background. So that's our card. Let's give it a height too of 400. Well, maybe we don't. Okay, let's not do that. Okay, so that here was just for you guys to see. So after the card content, let's do card hover. So whenever you hover over the card, but we want to change the card content. Transform, rotate Y of 180 degrees. Okay. So whenever I hover over it, it changes. And for you to know, you don't have to write 180 degrees. You can also say 0.5 turn. Okay. Then just 5, 6 more CSS rules. So for the front side, card front. And for the card back, position absolute. And then we put it on top, bottom, left, and right to the border. Then let's give it a padding of 5 EMs on top and bottom, and 3 EMs left and right. Then let's use backface visibility. That's a new one. So whenever you flip something around, the backside will not be visible. So you cannot see through, basically. Hidden. Transform style of preserve 3D. Display grid. And align content in the center. So you see that whenever it turns around, it's not visible anymore. Okay, then let's go to the front card. So card front, alone, and give it a background color. And this time we can use one of our variables we used. So in order to put it here, we have to call the var function. And inside there, we give it the name, color. This was the one we used, right? Yep. So then background image. And that's an online image. So URL, and in there, HTTPS s3-us-2.amazon.aws.com s.cdpnio yeast 308367. No. There it is. So then background. Size is cover. Then background blend mode. In CSS, you can also have blend modes. Is overlay. And then color for the text. Everyone there so far? Not that I lose you all. So that was card front. And now we put something before the front and before the backside. So card front, before, comma, card back, before. Okay. And whenever you select a before or after, you have to have a content attribute in there. Otherwise, it collapses to 0. So content. And even like now, when it's empty, that does not matter, but it has to be there. Okay. So we have the content. We have a position of absolute. Then let's create another spacer in here. Spacer 1em. So that's when I create a variable just for that set here. So at top, and there we put our variable in here, spacer. And then let's copy that one here. Because we also need a bottom. And then we can just put it there. Then a left. And where there's a left, there's also a right. Then a border of 3 pixels, solid, and current color. Does exactly what the name says. It just picks the current color of the content and puts it there. And then transform. Where am I here? Level 1. This one will look super cool in the end, I swear. Then let's do the card title. Let's do a font size of 3 ems. Oh, rems. Even different rems. Transform. And for the transform, we use the level 3. Order 2. This is something for grid. Text transform, uppercase. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Then let's go for the subtitle. Transform variable. Level 2. Text transform, uppercase again. Letter spacing. A font size of 0.75 rems. Font weight. Where we here var. Of font weight bold. And an opacity of 0.7. So it's a little transparent. Okay, and then let's do the card body. We do a transform. Level 2. Font weight. Of font weight normal. Font size of 1.5 rems. And the line height of 1.5. And then last but not least, card back, transform, rotate, and just about the y-axis of 0.5 turns. Color, which we have a variable, and the background color of 333. Okay, let's preview that. Let's save it first. Okay. Okay, and now we change it around. We have some nice effect. It actually looks like the font and the border is a little bit higher than the image. And you did that. Any questions to that one? We had some pretty forward CSS stuff in here. Like we had the import of the font, we had variables created and then used. No questions? Okay. Then let me have you guys. Yeah. Come on, open that. Okay, let's do the float start CSS. And these are examples where or how you should use floats nowadays. Okay, so you can actually style a web page with floats, but it's really not forward thinking on that one, because we have the other ones that you see then later. Okay. Okay, so in the CSS file, I imported a font for you guys. I made all that look a little nicer, and that's all I did here. Okay. Everything else we put here in the style nest. So when you have an image and you want to have the text not, because the image is an inline object, the text floats right next to it. And if the font is not as big as the image, it looks like this. But if you want to have the text come up here and then wrap the image, you would use a float for that one. Okay. So let's go here into the float image and text section. And let's go float intro image and give that one a float left. Okay, nothing changes. Except that the text is now up here. Okay, you can also do a right. If you can type it, then it's on the right side. But whenever you do that, you would put a little bit of margin here, so it's not touching that much. So let's put someone in. Margin right. of 1M, for example. So then you have a nice space around. This is the main thing to use for floats. Okay, for the second example is where you can float images next to each other or boxes. So float multiple. And also float right or left, and then they are nicely aligned. Then here we have three paragraphs that we can put next to each other with float. Float layout 1 and column. Float right. And then margin right of 3%. Spaces them out nicely. And you can do more layouts with floats. Float layout 2, sidebar left. Width of 25%. And the float of left. Then the main one. The width of 50%. Float left. Then let's get the sidebar right. Let's give it also 25% of width and the float right. And then a float for the footer. Okay, so for the layout here with the footer, let me quick look. Oh, it's just footer without the class. Okay. Just without class. For that one, we have to clear the floats. Okay. So clear both, as we know from before. And that would make something like a website design where I have two sidebars, one left and right, and one central one, and the footer is full width. And all of these, see, they are kind of mobile responsive with just the float and the percentage in there. But it's not how you usually do it, but it's just that it's possible to do that with that. So I don't encourage you to do it this way. It's better to use media queries and then with flex or grid, which is the next few things we're looking up. Okay. And for the last example here with cards, it's pretty much the same like the ones before. We go for the card layout 3 and then the cards. Float. Layout 3 and the card. And then there we have float left. So by now, the background of these is messed up. If you click in here. Okay. And in order to fix that, we have to go here and give it a minimum height. So float layout 3. Or just a height of 800 pixels. And with that, we have enough background, but we see that in, the problem we have sometimes with floats is if they're all not the same size, this one gets stuck on this corner. And in order to fix that, you have to put a clear fix in between these two. And I know that is in line 120 here. And I just put it there. And with that, here's a clear fix then where the float stops and starts in another row, and then we have it aligned proper. This is something you would have to do for every screen size individually. So if you have another screen size where there are, for example, 4 in a row instead of 3, then you have to put another clear fix in there that's only active for that screen size and so on. That's why float is not as nice to align things that are not the same height. Okay. For that, let's do first the flex ones. Let's start with flex 1. Or actually, I had enough typing. Let's do the flex 1 finish. Okay, I just show you. So here with the CSS Flex, okay. So these 3 are in the container with the div, and this is just for the styling that we see them. And I just called every box has a class on its own, like box 1, box 1, box 2, box 3. And just with putting them a flex in there gives them an alignment. And if I give a size in there, that means flex 2 and 3, as you see here, have a flex of 1. That means, okay, all 3 boxes are in a row. There are 2 boxes with a flex of 1 and 1 box with a flex of 4. So altogether, 2. So altogether, it's 4 total. So the browser takes the whole width of the browser and divides it by 4 sections. And then the 2 boxes with a flex of 1 get only one of that fourth width of the window, and the one with Flex 2 gets 2 of the, or otherwise half of the window width. And that stays true the whole time, or as long as the browser can put all the content in there. That's the beauty of Flex. So something similar is done with box 4, 5, and 6, where I just gave it a width of 30%. Okay. Then they're like this. And I also gave they are inside another div that's called the second container. And I just gave it justify content in there, and the flex is on the container, and there is space between. It's one of the settings for justify content. You can say beginning, then everything's on the left side, or end, then everything's on the right side. You can say center, then all 3 elements are in the center. Or you can say space between, then they're stretched out, and there is the leftover width of the screen is put between the 3 elements. Or you can say around, so space around. Then the remaining space is divided by the outside and the inside. Okay. Then for the next row, here with 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I gave it a flex basis of 15%. So every one of them takes at least 15%. And if it gets smaller, it wraps. So it makes a second row. See, like now we have a second row. And if there's more space, I put the space between again. See? Okay, that's where the browser helps you do it automatically. I gave you guys a cheat sheet about all the flex and grid attributes you can use. So if you ever want to play around or need, just look at the cheat sheet I gave you, because there are definitely plenty of options you can use. So for the Flex 2 example, this is, let's look at the HTML. So we have a header section where there is some navigation parts in here, which is this one here. Then we have a wrapper for the whole content. In there we have a sidebar, and then a content section where there's a chat container where actually stuff would happen on the chat website. And then at the bottom, we have an input field. It's that one here where you actually would type in your chat content. And all I had to do, except from some styling here, so in the CSS file, we had some styling for the menu and for the text and the colors. And all I had to do here is give the wrapper for the whole thing a display of flex. And then I wanted to change the direction to, because usually by default, Flex puts it in columns. You can change that direction to rows. So now it's in rows next, actually rows. Then I gave it a height. And then the navigation up here as well. And I made it flex end, so it's all on the right side, Flex. So like Flex starts, then it's left. Just center, center at center, or space around, then they're stretched out. Okay. And then for the chat container, I made it 2 columns again, so that this and this is a column. And then here I made the overflow scrollable, or the chat content itself scrollable. And on the bottom here, the input field. I just created that one like this. So that's one way you can use Flex to build websites. Really? Sorry. And now to grid. And here also grid. Let's start with the finish one. Yeah. So I made here a header, which is then here the Austria link, then a container. Not now. Sorry. A container where the whole content is in, and then a content itself in there. There we have heading 1, a paragraph, the image, and then down here in the footer section, we have an unordered list with every one of these as a list item. The heading is a span, and text is just regular text. Okay, all 6 of them. And then with grid, I gave the whole container a display of grid, and then grid columns of 60%, which means the first column needs to be 60%. It's that one in here, goes till here. And outer is the rest is then stretched out, whatever is left on pixels. And then for down here, for the unordered list, I made it grid again. And then I said I want to have 3 columns. So repeat 3, and then the size is auto. So it takes whatever it is, the full width of the browser window, and then divides it by 3. And then the same I did for rows. I just said I need 2 rows because I have 6 elements, and take as much space as you need. And that is everything to make this one a 3 column, 2 row layout. But the best is in the end for if you're using grid area, and it's very basic here. So I have here in the HTML part, I have a header. I just put a heading 1 in here, then a main section that has 3 sections, section 1, 2, 3. Then we have an article in here in the main section, and I have an aside one. So this one is like a sidebar, and then I have a footer section. And then the power of grid. So here's just where I give it different background colors. And then this here is to make it then different for different screen sizes. But the main part, where's the first one here? Okay, so if you come up, this is how it starts, okay? So everything's stacked because all of them are block elements. And then I said, okay, as soon as with the media queries, as soon as you go over 600 pixels, I want to have the whole thing displayed as a grid. And then I gave it a grid template area here. And here I said, okay, I can name the areas that I'm using. So I said, okay, on top is always, and I know I need 3 columns in the end, okay? I said, but the header element, I want to spread the whole width. So I said here, header is the name of that element. And I want to have it also in the second one and also in the third one. So that means as soon as I get there, it spreads the whole width. Then for the second row, I want to have the main here. And then in the middle one, I want to have the main as well. And on the other one, I want to have the aside one. Okay, and footer is like the header one. I want to have that spread out the whole width, all 3 columns. Then I went into the header element and gave it the grid area name of header, and the main, the grid area name of main, and the grid area main for aside is aside, and the grid area for footer is footer, so that I can just name these fields here. You can also have, as seen here, a grid inside a grid. So here, just for the main section here, which is that part here, I can have another one where I had section 1, 2, 3, and then on the bottom one, I want to have it spread the full width of that element with article, article, article. And here's another couple of namings. And then if I go the next bigger size, I just changed the whole thing a little bit. I said header still goes the whole width and footer goes the whole width, but inside there, I want to have a side now on the left side instead of the right side. See the difference? The aside one goes from the right to the left side, and the other one is still the main. And then inside there, inside the main with the other grid template areas, I changed the section 1 and 2 around. And so instead of section 1, section 2, section 3, I just changed that around. And I wanted to have that one now covering both rows. So I just gave that section 2 here, also section 2 here, and then called the other 2 article. And these 2 are together. So we're just giving the names in different orders, rearranges stuff in there, which I think is pretty cool because you can do that with a media query for every screen size, however you want to change them around. You can flip the header and the footer, you know, whatever you want to do. Questions to that one? Okay. Then I think I tortured you enough today, and I'll let you finish with your assignment for the rest of the class. Or does someone wants to do more? But it's all cool stuff. So for next class, I have some moving backgrounds, video background, parallax, some CSS filters, and customizing a scroll bar, for example. That kind of stuff planned for you for next class.
So I had a couple questions. So I did the tabs a little bit differently, actually.
Okay.
Screen 2. Okay. So why does it still say this one? Okay, I think this is the right screen, right? Can you see it? So
yeah.
I inserted the tabs using.
With the jQuery. Okay.
Yeah, and then so I did the preview. This is my preview, and then I don't know why it's black. Okay, that's weird. Anyway, so I was wondering how I edit the actual tabs in here.
Yeah, this is within the jQuery. That is a harder one to edit. So in the oh my cat. In the jQuery min CSS file, you would have to or in the theme min file for, or there's actually, I see a jQuery UL tabs as well. So the third one.
This one?
To the right.
Okay.
So that one is probably for the tabs. And there is the CSS in there. It's just because it is a minified version. As you see, all the CSS is in one line. So you really would have to look through there where and what it is that you want to change in the style.
Okay. All right.
So for example, I see there a float, or I saw there a float left for the anchors. No, it was for the UI tabs. You know, because this is hard to read because it's a minified version. So every white space is taken out and everything is put in one line, that it's kind of hard to read.
Okay.
But if you read carefully through it, you should be able to find. And have you been here when I explained the trick you can use when you're in the browser?
I forget what that is.
Just preview the stuff in the browser again. Let's go over that one. The page.
I don't know why it wasn't black before, but
okay, might be because of the thing. Just hover over one of the tabs and right mouse click, and then inspect the last one in the list.
okay.
Okay, now you see on, how's this your setup? Okay, on the top part, you see the HTML. And it kind of looks a little different because it's a preview by Dreamweaver. You see that in your URL that you're in the 127.0.0.1 domain. So the Dreamweaver acts like a server for you to preview the page. That's why the HTML here is, your document is basically inside an iframe. If you look down there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. In the 12th line, your page actually starts. If you see that one. Yeah. And in there, you see all your elements that are created by jQuery here. And if you go to the bottom part where it says styles, just really the bottom. Yeah. And if you drag the whole section up a little bit, you see, yeah, you see the CSS that it's for wherever you highlight it with the right mouse click, or you highlight in the HTML part. And so you could figure out which rule, you know, you can change CSS in here too. Not permanently, but at least in the browser. So you see when something happens. And there you could figure out which class or ID or whatever would target that element that you're looking for to target. And then you at least know which CSS rule you have to write to override the jQuery custom part. You make your own custom part on top of it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. What project did we insert the tabs? Because it sounds like it's easier just to do it your way.
Nowhere so far. I didn't show you guys that.
Okay. And then
because it is hard to change stuff in there. That's why I didn't show you guys.
Okay. Let's see what else we have. Well, I think that's it. Yeah, I'll probably have more questions as I keep going on.
Sure. I know they're popping up now.
Oh, and my sharing. Thank you.
Okay, I show you on mine how you could do something with it, okay?
Okay.
So that's this one here again. Okay, so let me select. Okay, here. Okay, I have that here. So for example, I want to select this one. So a right mouse click on here and the inspect. Sorry, from work, I always have that detached. And I always like it on the bottom more because first it's next to each other, and second, it doesn't change the width of your preview. So if you have media queries, the page looks different because you have stuff on the side, the page actually is smaller. So when you go over here and just hover over it, you see all the different information that pops up on top here and for the wheel side. And if you click here, you see all the HTML, CSS rules that are acting for that element here, for example. And then if I want to change something, I can just click it on or off or something else like here. Or you can even create your own one here for the moment. And overwrite it so you see if it's actually working or not. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then you would just copy that into your CSS file.
Okay.
But because the jQuery one you inserted does a lot of things in the background with JavaScript, it might be easier if you create your own one for the moment.
Okay.
As if when we have a little bit of Bootstrap and JavaScript, then it might be easier for you to go into the JavaScript part of jQuery and change it there. But I have not worked with jQuery for hundreds of years for changing tabs.
Oh yeah, I just looked up a YouTube video and that's what they did, so I just kind of copied it.
Yeah, well, it's pretty easy to, you know, if you're working with it more often, and Dreamweaver really prefers to put jQuery in there, and then you just have to figure out what you actually have to change to make it work. And the easiest one is in the browser because you see the end preparation of your page. You know, you can have your HTML and CSS, and then override it with JavaScript, which or jQuery in that case, which is like a library for JavaScript. And so you can have, like, for example, a heading 1 that says about, but then later in your HTML document, you have a JavaScript part that says, yeah, take the heading 1 and make it to a link to, I don't know, iss.com or so, you know, and then right there, visit my home. And then instead of about, you see visit my home there, you know. It's stuff that you can do with JavaScript on the fly when the website is being compiled in the browser after you have all your HTML and CSS. So that's why you always should look, if you have JavaScript or something in there, at your finished rendered page, like here now in the browser, and then you see what's really standing there. You know, like, you don't know that actually Dreamweaver puts that up there and then put your website into an iframe on the website with all these extra data life information there that just Dreamweaver puts there. This is all edited or put on your website while, before, or after your website is rendered with JavaScript. That's why it's so hard sometimes to find actually what's causing your issue if a lot of scripting is involved. I know it doesn't help you at the moment, but if you really open your page in the browser without Dreamweaver, just, you know, go new tab, hit Command O or whatever equivalent Windows used for command, the one next to the spacebar left, and with what is that, Control O, you can open a website or a file from your machine. Let's go to that one here, and here I can open what is happening here? That shouldn't be like this. Open a file from a machine, and if you right click here now and inspect, you see the real website, how you made it, you know, without all the Dreamweaver extra stuff surrounding it and inserted into it. Okay.
Yeah, now that helps.
Yeah, time flies.
When is this project due again?
Project 1, September 21st.
Oh, okay, good. There's still time.
Yeah, plenty of time.
If we have any more like coding questions about our project, can we bring them to like our next class next Monday?
Sure, or email me.
Okay.
If you have trouble with something, send me a screenshot or the file and say I have trouble with the heading or so, you know, whatever it is, and then. But I need the CSS and the HTML file if you have more, and it would be nice to have the images as well, because otherwise I just have blank space there, you know.
Sounds good.
Happened. Something else.
That's it for me.
Okay. If you don't have any other questions, I would say good night to you all. Otherwise,
Good night to you too.
otherwise, keep asking.
I'm good here. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, you too, guys.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Good weekend. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.